Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome back to our channel Learn Tech with Kiran. In some of previous video of Unit 1, we know about DFA and NFA, which are finite automata without output, whereas Moore machine and Mealy machine are finite automata with output. In NFA and DFA, we just know about whether string is accepted or rejected. If your string is reached to the final state or your input symbol reached to the final state, it will accepted. If your string reached to the non-final state, it means it is rejected. Correct? So in NFA and DFA, there is no output produces. Correct? But while you are using or while you are designing a Moore machine or a Mealy machine, it produces a specific output. Whenever we needed to generate an output or produces an output, we have to use Moore machine or a Mealy machine, which is a part of finite automata with output. Okay. When you learn about NFA and DFA, there is a specific difference between your NFA, DFA and Moore machine and Mealy machine designing. In NFA and DFA, there is a specific final state where you can say if your string reaches to the, it is accepted, or if not reaches to the final, it is rejected. But in Moore machine and Mealy machine, there is no concept of a final state, because you are generating output or you are producing an output according to whatever the string you want to accept. So it is a more specific difference in your Moore machine and Mealy machine, and in your NFA and DFA. There is a specific difference between NFA DFA, which is without output automata, and Moore machine and Mealy machine, which is with output automata. Okay, so let's deep down into Moore machine and Mealy machine, how it is designed, how it will define, and which are the tuples used in Moore machine and Mealy machine. Let's discuss one by one. Moore machine and Mealy machine. Previously we discussed your Moore machine produces an output. So your output is supposed to be depend on something, correct? Which is whether it is on depend on your state or whether it is depend on your input symbol. So while you are discussing about or we are defining about a Moore machine, your Moore machine output is depend on present state only. Okay. So whenever you want to design a Moore machine, you have to be more careful about your state, which is present state, because you have to associate your output with a state. Okay, but in a Mealy machine, your output is depend on what? Your present state and input symbol. If you see in notation, your present state as well as your output is associated with what? Your input symbol. So here your output is associated or dependent upon your present state and input symbol. Hope this is clear. Next, which are the tuples used in Moore machine and Mealy machine? There are some similar tuples used in Moore machine, Mealy machine, and your NFA and DFA. So with output and without output, finite automata having some similar tuples, which is nothing but your finite state of state, then your initial state, your input symbol, which is nothing but sigma, then transition symbol also in your NFA and DFA. But there are two different symbols used in this Moore machine and Mealy machine, which is nothing but your output symbol. Okay, and it is nothing but output generating function, which causes or which generate an output. This delta or this is output function is main difference between your Moore machine and Mealy machine. You can see over here, which is your output function is associated with what? Your output is depend on your input or your present state. Okay, but in Mealy machine you are seeing over here, your output is generated according to your state and your input symbol. So this is the basic and most important difference between Moore machine and Mealy machine. Okay, So notation something used in your Moore machine and Mealy machine is, for Moore machine you have used notation something like this. Your output is associated with your state and your input transition is similar like to the your NFA and DFA. So there is no difference between state generation or transition, but yes, in Moore machine and Mealy machine you are generating output, so output is associated with whether it is associated with a state or whether it is associated with a transition or input symbol. Okay, so this is the notation which is used for a Mealy machine. In Mealy machine your output is associated with your input present state and input symbol. So this transition function or this output function you can see over here. Okay, let's discuss quick example of one's complement Okay, so in one's complement what you have to produce, like if your input string is 0, so you have to generate 1. If your input string is 1, so you have to generate output as a 0. So similarly you have to design a finite automata which or Moore machine. So whenever you accept 1, you have to reach to the state whether your state is associated with output 0. This is state which is associated with output 1. If I accept input symbol 1, you have to generate output 0. So I move or I transition with one input symbol to the Q0 state because output is 0. But on the same state, if input symbol is 0, so you have to generate output 1 because it is a complement. So you have to move this transition to the state where your output is 1. So I move or you are moving this to the Q1 state because associated output is 1. On this Q1 state, if you accept input symbol 0, so as input symbol 0, you have to reach to the state where your output is 1. So with Q1 associated output is 1. So I move this transition to the Q1 state. But when your input symbol is 1, you have to move to the state where your output symbol is 0. So I move to this Q0 because associated output is 0. So basically whenever you design Moore machine or Mealy machine, you have to focus on associated outputs, whether it is associated with your state or whether it is associated with your input symbol. Okay, for a Mealy machine, this is a designing of one's complement because your output is associated with your input your state as well as input symbol. So whenever input symbol is 0, you have to generate output is 1. When your input symbol is 1, you have to generate output is 0. So it is like simple that. So we focus on this because it is most important topic as per SPPU as well as SHBAU and MSTCT and GATE. For today's video, now you know the difference between Moore machine and Mealy machine. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more such a TOC and computer science concept explained in a simple way. Thank you for watching. Keep learning and keep growing.